Thank you for taking time out today to join our webinar on B2B ABM. I'm Julia Spano, and I lead field marketing for Oracle CX in the Americas and will be moderating the webinar today. This webinar is part of a CX marketing series designed to dive deep into topics that marketing, sales, and service professionals care about and provide expert advice along the way. Let's dive into today's topic: how BMC Software engages top accounts with Oracle CX. It's my pleasure to introduce Danny Shearer, Senior Director of Business and Marketing Operations at BMC, along with Ankit Sharma, Senior Manager of Marketing Operations at BMC. They will be joined by Michael Henning, our resident expert of all things B2B from our product marketing team at Oracle CX. Over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Julia. Hi, Danny and Ankit. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. So before we jump into this, I think it'd be great for both of you to share a little bit of your background and history in marketing. Danny, let's start with you.
Great. Thanks, Michael. First of all, let me just start by saying thank you for inviting us. We think it's an honor to be invited, and we appreciate the opportunity to share with other marketers. And hopefully during this session, everybody walks away with at least an idea or a tip or two as to how they might think about their ABM operations. I've been in the high-tech space for 30 years. Of those 30 years, I've been with BMC for 17 years. And most recently, I lead our business and marketing operations team, which is responsible for supporting our ABM, our demand generation, our digital teams, our field marketing, our channels marketing teams, with process planning, technology. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ankit, who has responsibility for the technology area.
Thanks, Danny. Hi, everyone. I'm Ankit Sharma. I'm located in Toronto. I'm working as a Senior Manager Marketing Operations for BMC Software. Danny is my boss. And I've supported a lot of webinars in the past, but this is the first as a speaker. I have experience of 8+ years of experience in the field of marketing automation and operations. And thanks, Michael and Oracle, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And this is great. And both of your paths have led you to where you currently are in your careers at BMC Software. So tell us, what does BMC do?
Sure, I'll take that question. For starters, it's a really exciting year for us. This year, we just celebrated our 40th birthday. We are an enterprise software and services provider. We in the B2B space, and our goal is to help customers be able to transform and grow their businesses while improving operational efficiencies and ensuring that their current IT management practices are running effectively. We service about 10,000 customers globally. We have 84% of the global Forbes list as our customer base. And we're constantly looking for ways that internally we can better help the organization meet those goals of servicing customers.
And you know, when we here at Oracle heard your story, we were so impressed with how you implemented and executed an impressive ABM program. Success like this, it's really often not achieved without first a great marketing department like the one at BMC, and second, having great technology. BMC uses Eloqua to do this. Let's talk about your history as an Oracle customer. So what brought you to Eloqua?
Sure, I'll take that one. So I think we have been using Eloqua for more than 10 years now. And this was before Eloqua was acquired by Oracle in 2012. And when we were looking for a marketing automation platform, Eloqua stood out because it allowed us to do a lot of customizations. The current workflows that we have for lead scoring, lead routing, they're very customized as per our business requirement. And they're very complex, but they're very effective. So that was one of the main reasons why we went with Eloqua, and it's been working wonders for us so far.
I'll just add one additional point here to the Oracle user community, being able to attend this year virtual, but in past years, the networking opportunities with other peers that are also using Eloqua has been a great source of information for us, and a great way for us just to share ideas on how to continue to support the organization and grow the organization. So the technology is fabulous. It's been a great platform for us, but so has the relationship in the Eloqua community as well.
Fantastic. And so before we get into the bulk of things, I just wanted to take a second to run a quick poll with our audience today. So launching a poll question here: do you currently have an ABM strategy in place? Options being yes, we've been leveraging ABM for a while, it's in the early stages, or not yet, are planning to implement one soon, or no. So we'll give everyone about another 15 seconds here to respond. All right, so we can see we have a little bit spread out kind of everywhere, and there's some that most people fall right in the middle that are yes, but it's in the early stages, or not yet, but are planning to do it soon. So I think with that, I think the stage is really set for what everybody's been waiting for, to talk about how you implemented and executed your ABM program with Eloqua. So a lot of marketers talk about ABM and are wanting to make that leap. But I think we see many don't make it that far. And we do know that marketing teams who are able to drive more revenue do it by aligning more closely with sales. So what made BMC start thinking that ABM was the better strategy? What drove you to say, we have to do this?
Sure. So everybody hears that, sales would like to see marketing do more. Marketing thinks it's doing a lot and doesn't understand why sales doesn't see that. And everybody knows that there's always more that we can do. And as we headed into 2019, we had a top priority across the organization to better align the sales and the marketing organizations. And that really started at the top. We had top level executives, senior management support to do that. And that we knew that we needed to start with agreement on where do we need to focus. So if marketing was putting programs into market that were generating interest and responses, then we needed to make sure that those were the right types of contacts, the right types of accounts that the sales organization was interested in following up on. I'm sure other organizations have experienced this very thing, and it really started with that agreement to align, and then putting the processes in place to gain the alignment on where should we really focus. And we started with understanding both the corporate goals, what was the company trying to achieve, and then we worked with each of the regional sales leads to determine, what were they seeing in their local regions, and then we tied together that insight, that information, so goals, what each of the regions were seeing, along with leveraging technology to share back what marketing was seeing with the sales organization, so that we really had a clearly defined targets and goals that both teams were really stood behind. So that's really where it started and what drove us to look at ABM.
Absolutely. And Danny, this is such an important point to bring up, because I think most would agree that in order to implement a successful ABM strategy, marketing and sales must be working in that complete harmony, right? To define priorities, identify what an ideal target account looks like, and what stakeholders in that account should be targeted. So I understand BMC has a large solution portfolio, and with that comes a lot of different buyers and personas, right? How did you address that?
Yeah, great question. So yes, we have hundreds of products, hundreds of solutions. We have several core product lines. Within that, we have many targeted personas that align with our solutions in each of those areas. And in some cases, they even overlap. So we might have one persona that depending on that person's interests or what pain points that they might have right now in market, they could be interested in different BMC solutions. So it was really important for us to focus in on which personas. Everybody's heard you've got to get the right message in front of the right people at the right time. It sounds super easy, but how do you actually make that a priority and a reality across both sales and marketing? So each team was doing it independently, but we worked together to agree on what were the solutions, what were those target personas that we were going to go after, and understanding when was the right time. And part of that Ankit's going to cover in just a second, but how did we identify which companies are interested in which solutions at which time? And then based on that, we collaborated across the organization, many different teams within the organization to get that agreement, that buy-in, and then also to understand how are we going to look at it and determine that we were being successful. And if we weren't, how do you quickly adjust? So it was really across the organization effort to understand all of those things and to look at what do we want to measure in the end so that we would know if we were effective. We did that upfront as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ankit just to dive in a little bit more on the technology side as to how we accomplish that.
Sure. So we used, as Danny said, we used a lot of first-party data that we had within Aliqua that we were capturing through our existing setup. And also the third-party data that we were using. So with every response that we are capturing within Aliqua, we are capturing something called a content preference and product interest. We also have majority of our database, Danny was talking about personas. We had the buyer personas populated for majority of our database. And so we've been, all of this data used us to, that we use to identify the right set of contacts for our different products that we have. Each and every asset that we were tagging with all of this information eventually helped us when we started implementing ABM programs. And then the ABM technologies that we were using, the predictive models that we have built for all of these different products, when we ran all of the accounts that we have in the database through these predictive models, it helped us narrow down those set of accounts and also the third-party intent data that we are using. So using all of this third-party and first-party data, we were able to target the right set of contacts depending upon the campaigns or the initiatives that we have for each and every business units or product lines, as they call it, or products.
Okay, great. And you guys were a Marquis finalist earlier this year before COVID hit. Right now, this is really top of mind for all marketers as new challenges have arisen for how we typically are connecting with customers. How did this affect your original strategy?
Sure. So, it's definitely been an impact for all of us. We had to, reevaluate what was going on in the world and how was that affecting our customers. And obviously, the impact of COVID changed our customers' priorities. And the great news is that our strategy, the overall strategy, didn't change per se. We had the foundation, we had the strategy in place that allowed us to be really agile and to address the message that we were putting into market with each of our persona audiences, and to be sensitive to what was happening. We had this shift where now everybody's working from home. We had organizations that were experiencing some loss. We saw complete industries that were being affected. And this allowed us, since we already had each of these audiences very clearly defined, we were able to then shift our message to be more targeted to what did that particular audience need. So it really allowed us to, we already had the strategy in place. We were able to leverage that to respond and to be more agile more quickly. And as with everybody, I'm sure with COVID, organizations very, very quickly began to look at expenses. Nobody wanted to lay off any people in organizations. We were very fortunate. We didn't have to lose anybody in our marketing teams, but we did have to be smarter. And as a result of having our strategy in place, we've actually been able to exceed our original targets in spite of COVID. So I think having all of that in place allowed us to be really smart with our budget. It allowed us to really put messages into market that were relevant, that mattered to customers given all of the changes. And we were able to do more with less, which is really what everybody is trying to accomplish at the end of the day. So it's unfortunate that all of us have been impacted by COVID, but it was beneficial that we had already started thinking about ABM and how to scale it. And I think that supported our transition into dealing with this new world.
Wow, that's great. So you guys have identified this overarching challenge, or let's call it an opportunity for you to up level and really shift your focus to an account-based approach, right? Implementing an ABM strategy, that's not easy. So what did you do to drive this change?
It's not easy. It required a mindset change. We really needed across the organization a mindset change to get buy-in and support from all of the different parties. And it started at, like I said earlier, the highest levels of the organization were bought in to this mindset. And then that information trickled throughout the organization. And we were able to manage it both from a top-down perspective, as well as, the feet on the street perspective, if you will, all of the folks that are doing the day-to-day getting programs into market, we're all behind it. And that allowed us to really kickstart. If we didn't have that corporate-wide, we would have had to started much slower and proven ourselves, done a small pilot, rolled it out. It would have taken us much longer because we had that senior level management support. It allowed us just to get into market much quicker. And as a result, we started seeing very positive results much quicker. So we were very fortunate to have that opportunity. And as we saw wins and shared with the broader organization where we were seeing, so for example, there was one region in particular where the sales organization was very, very bought into the strategy, and we worked very closely with them. And where we saw results, where we saw those wins, we immediately celebrated. We shared those stories with other regions and got other regions excited. So it was a little bit of an excitement explosion, if you will, like a snowball that, continued to grow and grow as we had more wins. So again, I mentioned earlier, having the measurements in place, we were able to take those measurements and use that data to celebrate the stories. And the sales organization, saw those wins and helped also evangelize the idea, to continue to do this. So it's definitely a mindset change. It also required the sales organization and even our sales operations organization to shift their mindset as well, and to support this idea of a combined strategy where we were really all in it together. So that's really where it started. And then once we got that mindset and that strategy buy-in across the organization, we had to put a number of processes in place to ensure that we were connected throughout, and that we didn't miss any dots. Everything was connected. We thought through all the different pieces. I'm not saying it was perfect, but it allowed us to see those wins and continue that momentum. So it it really started with that mindset, and then having the right processes. Ankit's going to talk about this shortly, but having the technology foundation enabled our ability to make changes to the processes much faster. And it really solidified, it tied everything together.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect segue into the technological side of things. Can you guys talk about specifically what you required from the tech perspective? Because I think this decision was ultimately going to determine how your current system could be leveraged to accomplish these goals.
Right, absolutely. I can take that. So what we did was we translated these ABM strategies when we were researching. Obviously, we started from scratch. So we had to research, how we can implement all of these strategies into our systems and processes. And we translated those into the technologies and processes that we need to add and to use the existing processes and technologies that we have. So I think it was a two-step process. The first step was identifying the right accounts. And then the second step was identifying the right contacts within those accounts, right? So for the first step, we worked closely with sales to identify, and we divided these accounts in tiers, right? So tier 1, which will be our top accounts, tier 2, which will be the clusters of accounts with maybe similar attributes that we can target. And then the last one would be the larger pool that, scalable ABM as we used to call it. And this is where we use the technologies like Lattice, Lattice's predictive models and third-party intent data. So the top accounts, tier 1 accounts, it was more working with sales to identify those accounts. But then all of these clusters of accounts, we were able to identify using these predictive models and third-party intent data. When it came to identifying the right set of contacts, we used some of the things that we already have in place. For example, the response data that I talked about, the content preferences and product interests that I talked about, personas that we had in place, and obviously the Aliqua engagement and the response data that we are capturing through all of these systems. And Aliqua acts as a hub for us. And every technologies or tools, be it Lattice, be it Integrate, be it any other webinar platform that we have, we always feed that data in Aliqua. So this is how we were able to target and send the right message to the right contacts in these right accounts. And also there's a time factor of it at the right time as well. So when you have all of these integrations and technologies working together, you can also take care of the time factor. So you're targeting people when they are interested, and it's not a stale or old data that you have.
Absolutely. And so you guys have this new strategy in place and processes are defined. What did it take to get up and running? Was it a heavy lift? What kind of resources and personnel did it require?
Yeah, it was definitely a heavy lift. I think 2019, we began researching about ABM. It was a year of transition for us. And we really started focusing on ABM as a strategy, as an approach. The first phase focused on identifying a set of target accounts that met our ideal customer profile. And our first set of marketing programs were designed and put into market in May using Lattice apps and other technologies and Aliqua at the center of it. And then June of last year, we really kicked off phase 2 of our approach, and we hired 3 ABM demand planners that focused on aligning closely with our sales organization, field marketing planners, and as well as using the latest ABM strategies that we have in place. And they're still, obviously, every day, they're researching on the things that we can do, and we are continuing that legacy from there. And by the end of the year, we had programs in market, and we were targeting 24 of the top ABM accounts and 14 ABM cluster programs that were targeting our second tier of top accounts, which was around 500 accounts with similar customer profiles. So this was the tiering that I was talking about, the tier 1, the top accounts, and tier 2, similar profiles that we had of accounts. And then tier 3 was basically the traditional demand marketing efforts that we had. So it's not like we went away from the traditional demand marketing, but this ABM strategy really, complemented or all of the efforts that we were already doing.
I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, you mentioned 5 months for phase one. That's an insanely small time frame to get that up and running. Can you talk a little bit about how utilizing Eloqua as the hub of your data strategy enabled the program? Because I think data's been kind of that underlying theme that we've had through everything today, right? And you guys are collecting and activating data from a whole host of different systems. How did you connect all of this data using Eloqua?
Yeah, so this thing we already touched upon is something that we already had in place, some of the existing systems and process integration, and that really gave us a boost. So although it seems like it's 5 months, but we have been at it for, maybe 4 or 5 years, putting all of these processes and integrations in place. For example, we utilized a custom data object within Eloqua to capture all the responses. We only have 2 forms within Eloqua that capture all the submission data that we have, and all the external forms that we have on bmc.com, which is our website. We work with a vendor called Integrate to capture all of the content syndication vendor data that flows seamlessly with Eloqua, and a lot of processes that we have in place. We have a very good lead scoring system that we review and modify each year as per requirement. We have a good lead routing system. We have contact to account matching, for which we use another tool. And then we have the closed loop reporting setup, which really helps us from a reporting perspective. So we utilize all of these pre-built integrations and processes really to then start supporting all of the ABM efforts. And one of the main criteria was whenever we were onboarding a new vendor, we always made sure that integration with Eloqua was one of the main considerations. So for example, when we onboarded Lattice, we made sure that it had cloud apps in the Eloqua marketplace that we can use. And that's how we were able to go to the market very quickly with these ABM programs.
Wow, and all this is absolutely awesome. But at the end of the day, you have to measure the success of what you are doing. How are you guys tracking the results of this program?
We have an amazing analytics team, and it really started, the analytics team started with all of the different data points that Ankit was talking about. So they're able to use Lattice to determine our ideal customer profile for each of our product lines. They were able to pull in all of the different intent data, whether it was first party intent that Anka was talking about that came from response data. And the response data could have come from a number of different sources, all through marketing programs, digital programs, email nurtures, et cetera. So all of that information is all collected. The analytics team is able to take that information, join it with the Lattice information, join it with our CRM information, and they had already an infrastructure in place to provide us with our core data set through dashboards that our teams all actively use. Because they, similar to our marketing operations team, had the infrastructure in place with Eloqua, they were able to very quickly extend that to supporting all of our needs for ABM. So I mentioned earlier, as part of the strategy and the collaboration with all of the different teams, we identified what did we need to measure to say, yes, this is more effective than what we were doing previously. We do a lot of tests. It's part of our philosophy and has been for a number of years, where we will try different things, and it's okay to try things and fail, as long as we can quickly identify that and then move on. And in many cases, we were able to learn and say, okay, this is fantastic. How do we continue to improve upon it? So we gained that buy-in from all the different parts of the organization, and different parts of marketing, different parts of sales, different sales operations team, the analytics team. So it was a pretty extensive effort, but we gained the support as to what measurements. We wanted to be able to track all of our different ABM segments. So Ankit mentioned we've got our top tier accounts where we're doing very focused marketing programs for our biggest customer accounts, where we've got a very targeted plan for maybe one specific account. And then we've got our second group of priority accounts where they're more similar in nature. So maybe it's an industry, or maybe it's a particular need where sales or our data has shown us that they have a particular need in one of our solution areas. Whatever that likeness is amongst those clusters of ABM accounts, we knew that we wanted to measure that. So let's say, for example, it was an industry, and we said we wanted to know how is that particular industry performing. So we looked at what we needed that output to be, and we even set targets to say, okay, this is what we were seeing before ABM, and we wanted to be able to measure in real time how was that progressing. And we looked at a number of different activities to determine, are we seeing that traction that we were looking for, and was it more so than what we were seeing prior to this implementing this strategy. And because we had that foundation, the analytics team was able to extend what we already had. We still use what we previously had. It's extremely valuable information, but it was extending that information. So we knew, is this working or not?
Yeah, I think I can add to that. Is some of the things that we're using is we have, technically speaking, we have campaign attributes that we tag each and every go-to-market campaign that we put out there. So we are able to dissect that data and see, what kind of ABM programs perform better and how each one of them are performing. And then we also have campaign member and lead attributes that our analytics teams is reporting on. And they're tying all of this data. And there was one question in the chat box, and someone was asking whether we were using Eloqua or any other BI tool. So as I said, we have an analytics team that joins all of this data from Eloqua, Salesforce, and they're able to then put it together. We use Tableau to host all of our dashboards. And they're able to join all of this data to then give us all the analysis that we need.
Awesome. And I think this is the perfect time to move into talking about what you guys found out. So how well did it work?
Amazingly well. I think it even surprised us how well it did. I mentioned that the reporting was done in real time so that we could celebrate successes, celebrate wins, and we had regular communications and cadence with the different parts of the organization so that we could continue to build upon what we were learning as we went. And as a result, we did see 81 from the marketing activities that we were doing. We saw 81% of the ABM accounts engaged. And we had been measuring this previously, and it was in the 30 to 40% range, depending on different regions, depending on what the message was that was going out. So we did a before and after look, and 81% were engaging in some type of activity. And that told us that the data that we were seeing from using the data that we were seeing from intent was really helping us with that time element. So not only did we have response data that we were looking at, but we were also looking at third-party intent data, and that just validated for us that we were doing the right things. We also saw in that first time period that we were looking at this information, we also saw a really significant jump in the increase in the total value of the pipeline that we were generating for the sales organization. And so Ankit was talking about the different phases, and in 2019, it was slightly lower than this. It was in the 20% range. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but when we look back now, since across 2019 and 2020, it's pretty significant, and it continues to grow quarter over quarter, again, even in spite of COVID, which is absolutely fantastic. The other piece too, and you'll notice that the value of the pipeline created was greater, the increase year over year was greater than the number of opportunities that we increased year over year. So it's good. We helped to source 14% more opportunities year over year. But what was even better was that those opportunities grew in size. So there was a number of different measurements. These were a couple of the big ones that we took a look at. We also generated just through targeting the buying center for an ABM account, we were able to grow the number of contacts in the database for these accounts. We also saw higher closed won ratios for these opportunities that were sourced by the marketing team as well. So we're continuing to look at ways to increase these numbers even more so. But for our first year, 18 months, it's been fantastic results.
Oh yeah, this is absolutely amazing, and I think everything you guys are doing today is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you saw an opportunity, created a plan around it, right? Implemented it in unprecedented time, and have seen, as we just saw, unbelievable performance as a result. So what's next? I mean, how are you working to make these programs better over time?
Sure. First of all, thank you. I'm a perfectionist, so nothing's ever perfect, but we're always striving for it. The team is very much supportive of continuing down this path, given the results that we've seen. The alignment with our sales organization has grown significantly in the last year and a half. And we know that there's even more opportunity to do that. So as we enter in what we're referring to as our third phase, which really started in 2020, we're looking at how can we scale? So how can we, as a marketing organization, provide even more support for our sales organization? How can we scale the number of accounts that we're focused on? How can we scale the size of the opportunities? How can we generate more opportunities? How can marketing source more for the sales organization so that they can spend their time on their relationships with the accounts and working their sales cycles? And that's really our ultimate goal, is how do we do more of that? So some of the things that we've been working on and continue to work on is how do we extend this, what we've learned through our indirect channel sales organization as well. So the work that we've done has been primarily within our direct sales organization, and the feedback has been very positive. So how do we extend it at scale with our channel partners who are interested in doing more focused ABM efforts? So that's one area. Another area that we're looking at is how do we, the clusters that I was mentioning before, how do we find more of those right clusters and scale at that level? So I mentioned industries, for example. So we had a few industry clusters, and we're looking to, extend that so that we're getting relevant messages to different industry teams and helping them understand how our solutions can help in that particular industry. So those are some examples of just how we want to be able to scale. The other piece too is we have a ton of data. I mentioned this earlier. We have a fantastic analytics team. And so we want to be able to be more agile and even improve. So what we've done from a reporting perspective is pretty amazing. But what else can we do? How can we be able to respond faster? How can we look at the data and say, yep, this is working, let's do more of that. Oh, this isn't working. Is there something that we can do to tweak it, to improve it? Or should we stop doing that? And be able to provide that feedback back to our marketing our marketing planners so that they have that at their fingertips and they can react very quickly. I think about how quickly we were able to respond to COVID, and there's always something that comes up. And if we as marketing operations professionals can more quickly support our marketing planners and our other marketing professionals and sales teams more quickly with things that are changing in the market, the better it is for everybody. So that's our goal for the remainder of this year and as we head into 2021.
Awesome. And I have no doubt you guys will continue to succeed. That's for sure. Just wanted to take a quick moment before we dive into Q&A and quickly review what we discussed today and how it worked for you guys. So you increased alignment between your marketing and sales teams through ABM, created a plan that transformed mindset, strategy, and process across the organization, and then implemented it so fast. I mean, having the pieces in place, of course, made it easier, but 5 months, that's no small feat. And then you saw unbelievable results because of your work. And lastly, Danny and Ankit, I wanted to just take a moment to thank you both so much for joining me today to talk about BMC and how you guys used Eloqua to implement and execute your ABM programs.